I was raised up in Mathare North. Almost my entire life has been in Nairobi, and so my journey as a social change maker starts in high school, and being looking at the background and the life that I was brought up. I was brought up as an orphan, so I never saw my dad. My mom died when I was very young, and so it's people or the community that raised me, and the only role models that I grew up knowing, those that were ahead of me, and these are the bad guys,
wale wasi wa mtaa.
But I escaped this life, because, and I will not say that it's because of my efforts, but because probably God destined me for something else.
Where do we start? Given that you are in peace building, and peace building involves having a lot of conversations, you could probably give me an icebreaker on how we can start this conversation.
I think we can start from how I got involved in peace building work, because this is what is core to me in terms of seeing peaceful societies and communities.
Okay. I think that is a brilliant place to start. Why peace building? Do you come from a background that had a lot of fracas, so you decided I'm going to be the person who brings peace into those communities?
So ideally, I was raised up in Mathare,
Right.
and Mathare North to be precise. And if you know the history of the urban slums in Kenya, and particularly in Nairobi, then you understand what what happens in these slums. And so when the 2007-2008 post-election violence happened, Mathare was one of the most affected places. And by then I was just joining high school, and so being raised up in Mathare North, and it was such a good community. I remember so many times it was a communal. We belonged to when a child, we belonged to everybody. Like anybody who was an adult was like a parent to us. And there was a lot of playing field within the community. There was a lot of harmony per se, because that's what I saw when I was growing up. However, when post-election violence happened, all that was disrupted. I saw my neighbors being displaced, and particularly people that I was very close to. I saw children, being taken out of school because the place was not conducive for them. And so many people were killed. And so there was this particular day that I was moving out of our house, and I was going to my uncle's place because it was just within. And then I met with a gang of people who almost wanted to slash me, or because they felt I was not from their tribe. And Mathare North is divided into segment, area 1, area 2, up to area 4. And these segments each have dominant tribe. And so I belonged to one section that had a dominant tribe. And so when these people saw me, they actually felt I was from another tribe. It took one of them to say, no, this is one of us. So I escaped that, yes. And so when this happened, and I saw how many kids were displaced, they could not go to school, they didn't have any other thing to do, parents and all that, I started having a lot of thoughts as a young person, as a student, why this is happening. A lot of that. Even when I went back to school, I started thinking, is there something I can do in my community? Because looking back how we were raised up, and now we are being divided amongst our tribes, amongst party lines. You know, you belong to this party, you belong to this, and most of us didn't know all these things. I actually didn't know how to speak my mother tongue until the post-election violence happened. Until now, you know, that realization that I belong to this tribe. And so this is what propelled me to start thinking about bringing change within my community, bringing some kind of solution. How do we come together as young people to start thinking about not peace building, but to start thinking about how do we start reconstructing our own community? How do we start thinking about the future? And so this is where my peace building work started. This is where my idea of social change started. And so even when I went back to high school, I started organizing my fellow students in terms of, can we start having discussions around, you know, cohesion? Can we start having conversation around unity? Can we start having conversation around, you know, how do we start building our communities? How do we start building a peaceful community? And so this is actually the basis of my peace building work, because I felt I had a responsibility as a young person to bring change, not just in Mathare North, but in all the urban slums and rural communities that might have been affected by violence, political violence, but also other violence that come up within the communities.
And that is a very good base to start this conversation off. And I would also like to acknowledge that on this platform, or on this particular conversation, Streams in Motion, we've had two amazing gentlemen from Mathare slums. One of them, I remember, his name is Brian Mulo. He does something similar, but through sports. And another amazing gentleman, he's called Edwin, but he is more into urban planning and development. But I see a particular similarity, and it is going to be a downright amazing conversation. But let us paint a picture for us. Who exactly is Salim Charles? Where does this begin? Where does this entire journey begin?
Great. So Salim Charles is a social change maker. Like I said, I was raised up in Mathare North. Almost my entire life has been in Nairobi, and so my journey as a social change maker starts in high school, and being you know, looking at the background and the life that I was brought up. I was brought up as an orphan, so I never saw my dad. My mom died when I was very young, and so it's people or the community that raised me. So if it's not teachers paying part of my school fees, my brothers and my sisters supporting me, it's mothers within the community, you know, identifying with me. And so this is what I started identifying myself with, that I not belong just to my family or to my tribe, but I belong to the community. And so looking at how everybody was interested in the work that I'm doing, and even in my studies, not just work, in my studies, in my welfare, in my affairs, as you know, as a young person. And so growing up in Mathare North, there were a lot of challenges. And not just in terms of, you know, challenges to do with violence, but challenges to do with, you know, livelihood, you know, struggling maybe to get food and all that. And the only role models that I grew up knowing, you know, those that were ahead of me. And these are the bad guys, you know.
Wale wasi wa mtaa.
Wale wasi wa mtaa. And recently I was joking with someone and saying, even the girls in the neighborhood, they will not want to associate with soft boys, because they will want to associate with gangsters. You know, when you meet someone and say, chali yangu ni ule jama dingo. And so these are people that we grew up looking up to. Looking up to.
You definitely want to find a girl someday, so you have to be that guy.
Exactly. And so this will push you to do some things. This will make you want to be like them, because you don't know any other life. But I escaped this life.
Yeah.
Because, and I will not say that it's because of my efforts, but because probably God destined me for something else.
Yeah.
And so many people are involved in modeling who I am today. And so fast forward, I'm involved in a lot of community work as a community organizer.
Yeah.
I do a lot of peace building work within the country, but also as a communication person, I do a lot of communication work in terms of supporting community organizations in terms of how to document their work and how to report the impact within their communities.
Yeah.
Because we have so many organizations that are doing so well, but they don't know how to communicate the impact that they are doing in the communities. And so as a profession and as someone who has seen, who has been born in this kind of communities, I would want to support CBOs and other community and change makers to be able to tell their story better and all that.
Amazing. And before I forget, this is Dreams in Motion, where we say if you've already made $1 million, probably this is not a conversation for you. But if you are on the journey of making your first $1 million, then you have to stick around. And I am your host, Alan Herbert. Charles, if you do not mind, not growing up with parents because of the circumstances that were probably unavoidable, what are some of the traits that you might have picked up when you now look back? What are some of the traits that you might have picked up that have propelled you or that have led to you doing what you do?
Great. So one is some of the traits that I have actually picked up in my journey as I was growing up within the community is resilience. Growing up in the urban slums, you need to have, it's another level. So you need to be resilient. Because you don't know when you'll get your next meal. You don't know when you'll be chased out of school because you have not paid school fees. Or even your rent. You don't know what will happen. And so you have to be resilient. The other thing is patience. You have to be patient with yourself. And because you cannot be like any other person. You have to be patient. You have to know who you are. You have to know where you're going. And you have to know what you can be able to achieve and what you cannot be able to achieve. And you have to build a system within you that allows you to break down when time comes. When that point comes that you can be able to break down, you can be able to go back and reflect on some of the things you have not been able to achieve. So that patience, resilience, and also what I've learned, or one of the traits that I've learned growing up is being able to communicate who you are. Because one of the traits that we get from the ghetto is, and people always say that, we are very aggressive, and aggressiveness not in a negative way, but because the environment has taught you have to be aggressive, because there are so many people that are fighting for the same resources, the same space, and so you have to communicate the things that you are doing. You have to communicate who you are and how you want to be able to be there, to where you want to be. One of my mentor usually will always tell me when I was growing up is that, you are not the only orphan. We have so many
Quite
orphans.
brutal, that one,
Yeah, that was, by then, I felt he was
sort of
unfair.
mocking.
Yes. But he told me there are so many orphans out there, billions. But you as Charles, you have to be an orphan with a story. And so that's a big trait for me. And that's why I don't say that I'm an orphan. I say I was raised up an orphan. Because that is not who I am. I'm different. I have to build my name, a name for myself. And another mentor that is currently mentoring me usually will tell me one thing, that you are born looking like your parents, but you will die looking like your decisions.
How do you pick these mentors? They seem to be very brutal.
And, no, you see, it's just, you know, a journey of life,
Yeah.
you know, because you meet someone and you feel like, oh, at this point of my life, I need this person to walk with me.
Yeah.
And at every point, they have to give you something. And so when I look back in terms of, so you look at, I didn't see my father.
Yeah.
And my mother died when I was very young.
Yeah.
So I don't look like my father, I don't look like my mother, but I look like my community that I came from.
Yeah.
And so if I say, oh, you know, in Madare, this is the kind of life that is there, you know, there is poverty, there is social justice issues, you know, all these kind of things, or we are marginalized, the government does, then if I don't change that, I will die with that. But if I say, okay, I was raised up in this community,
Yes.
but this is the decision that I'm making, and I made a decision
Yeah.
that I have to bring change within my community. I have to be a better person.
Yeah.
I have to write my own history. I have to write my own book, and people must read about this. People must associate with me because of what I'm doing, not because of what I went through. Yeah.
An amazing story, and I think you've said two things that are very profound here. And the one that I probably am going to hold dear to me is you are born looking like your parents, but you die looking like your decisions. So it means that the decisions that you make either make you or they break you.
Yeah.
But let us dwell a little bit on you growing up. Didn't you ever look at yourself as an underdog, saying that, you know, I have not been dealt with parents? Because the two gentlemen that I mentioned, even as they grew in that community, they had places to call home. They had a mother, they had a father. But now in your situation, it was totally different. How were you able to raise yourself from that pity party? Because truth be told, sometimes we find ourselves when we slump into that, when we feel things are not going the way they are supposed to go. How were you able to carry yourself out of that? And you could paint two pictures for us. When you are still young, when you definitely need somebody closer to you, like a mother, and where you are at right now, because most people would always want a man, like a father figure, to talk to, but there is nobody to talk to. How have you been able to juggle those two?
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Until I tell someone that I was raised up as an orphan, they will not, you know, it is not obvious.
That is a story that you've not decided to propagate out there.
Exactly. So even as I was growing up, people knew that I had parents. Nobody, until I'm very close, that's when I will start saying, you know, I don't have parents.
Yeah.
Because I didn't look like someone who don't have parents. I never allowed that to come into me. I never allowed that to be the, you know, the thing that broadcast who I am. And I will actually say I have a father, but deep down, I will go and start, you know, thinking about, do I really have a father? You know, and all that. And, you know, because I grew up between my brother's place, my uncle, and my cousins.
Yeah.
And so I will be, you know, shuttling between these homes. And people thought, oh, my uncle is my father and all that. But when I finished primary school, sadly or unfortunately, or fortunately, I was actually taken to an orphanage. And I think this was my turning point. Because I thought I didn't have so much. I thought I didn't have parents. But when I got to the orphanage and I interacted with people who were there and their story is different. You know, they are there because, you know, their mother gave birth to them and died maybe because from HIV or other things. And so I looked at them and their kids and they're hopeless. I was living with my brother, living with my uncle and all that. But here are people that now they are, you know, complete. They don't have anyone.
They don't have anybody to look
Yes, they don't have anybody.
Yeah.
And I started identifying myself now with them. And that is what now started building me at that point.
Yeah.
This is now I started, it's like, you know, being taken to a community and you realize that this is my community. This is now where I belong.
Yeah.
And between that, you know, when I was in high school, because I spent like 2 years or 3 years in the orphanage, it was the defining moment for me. Because I was now, these kids were looking up to me as an elder brother, and other people within this community, because they, will wash, we will wash them, we'll wash their clothes, we'll clean their dorms and all that. And so that started giving me a sense of responsibility. That started, giving me a sense of, I have to be able to take care of someone. I have to be kind of a father figure to some people. And so even after I finished, I started building within me that kind of, responsibility. That, yes, you didn't grow up as a father, with a father, you didn't grow up with parents, but one day you will have children. One day you'll have a wife. You have to show that you are a father. You have to be able to present yourself as a husband, because you cannot be, you cannot all the time be talking about what you didn't have and what you did not gain. And again, we don't dwell on what we didn't have. We dwell on what we can give to the community and to the society. And so for me, my biggest strength has always been the inherent ability, looking at myself as a strong person. I have a very strong personality, very strong personality, one that doesn't allow me to give up, one that doesn't, second, that doesn't allow me to look down upon me. Even when people say I'm like this, to me, I say a whole different thing. Because I know who I am. I'm aware of who I am as a person, as an individual. And so one thing, and just finishing up on my parents, I always say, I thank God they gave birth to me. And and they died. I appreciate that, because I give thanks to God for everything. Because I look at myself and say, if my father and mother were there, probably I will not be who I am today. That will be a whole different thing. Because I see people who have parents and they still don't have some of the things that people who grew up in slums without parents have. And so I am who I am because God decided to take me out of that hole.
I have been in my journey of trying or creating content. I've once asked a question. The problems that you are dealt with, would you rather nominate somebody else to have those particular problems?
I will say no.
Why?
Because the person you are looking at today, if I didn't go through those problems,
Profound.
I will not be here. Probably will not be interested to talk to me.
Very profound now.
You understand?
Yeah.
You will not be, because I will not have a story. There are people who grow up and they don't have anything. And I don't want to die without bringing change in my community and in my country. And that is very, very important. So the problems I've gone through, they are my motivation. They are my motivation. They are my pillars. And these are not even problems. This is a journey. And so if you don't grow through this journey, what story will you tell when you are old? What story will you tell?
Absolutely none.
None. And so, and you'll have nothing left. You'll not have a legacy. One of my primary school teacher, may her soul rest in peace, who will always tell us that you must leave this place a better place than you found it. And this is in connection to, planting trees and other cleanness. And, that has always been, has always pushed me, that you go through this situation and you have to be able to overcome it. And then let me tell you another story. Any problem that you have gone through, if you struggled in some kind of capacity as you are going through, you have an answer to that.
Qualify it.
Do you know how? You cannot train someone to deal with let's say, for example, to deal with theft, if you didn't experience theft, or you are not in an environment where people were experiencing that kind of life.
So if I want to catch thieves, I better send thieves to catch them.
Yes.
Interesting philosophy.
Yes. You only, you know, because you have gone through that school.
You have an understanding.
You have an understanding. And so these challenges come not just to harden us, but for us to become an answer. So you'll meet people through the journey of life who are struggling through the situation that you went through.
And you are able to lift them out of that.
Exactly.
Do you ever have battles in your brain? Like you fight wars, you have your brain has sort of broken itself into small pieces, and it is fighting with itself. Have you ever found yourself in such a situation?
All the time.
And how were you able to quell that noise? Because as I am listening to you, I'm here wondering what goes into Charles's mind most of the time. Because when you have so many things that you are dealt with, you have the lemons that you are dealt with, you have the lemonade that you are looking at on this other side, and you also have this customer that you need to take this lemonade to. And all these things are sort of boiling in your head. How are you able to quell that? Because I believe right now there is somebody who's watching this and listening as well, and they are going through a lot of chaos in their head. But when you see them out on the outside, they are perfectly okay, but in their head they have a catastrophe that is going on. How could you tell them to deal with those catastrophes that they have in their heads?
Very interesting. I'll start by saying how I deal with that. First of all, I'm a born-again Christian. I believe in the word. I believe in Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
And one way that I deal with all the struggle in my mind, because I have so many things that are going in my mind, is meditation. I spend a lot of time alone, and I'm able, to concentrate on one thing at that time of meditation to be able to heal, because most of the people have not gone through healing. They are struggling with things, and at the same time they want to bring change. And so instead of bringing change in the lives of people, they are actually poisoning the people they are working with. Because indirectly, they are bringing out their frustrations. They are bringing out the things they never had and the struggles. And so instead of building the people that you are working with, you are actually destroying them, because you are trying to make them be you indirectly. And so how I deal with this is, I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of writing, this personal journaling and all that. I was a poet. I will write a lot of poems. And these poems were not like love poems or this. They were poems. I've written like 10 poems only that questioned why my mother died. And every time I'll write one poem, I will heal. I will cry, and heal.
And release that tensity through the words that you are putting on paper.
Exactly. And so for me, that is my way of healing. That is my way of bringing all this. And then the other way is I don't compete.
You're oozing a lot of wisdom. Why exactly don't you compete?
Because I have come, through this journey of life as a change maker. I have come to a point where I have defined who I am in my own ways, not what the society defines me. And so I only compete with myself. Because I have come to realization that when you start competing with people, you don't know where they are coming from and who is behind them.
And the reasons why they're doing what they're doing.
And and also growing up, I've seen a lot of the young people that I grew up with, my age mates, dying at the age of 25, dying even before they get to 30. because they have always raced against time. You know, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this.
I want to have that.
I want to have that.
Yeah.
Or all these kind of things. So when I look at all these people that I've lost in my life that I grew up with, that gives me a lot of reasons not to compete with anyone. So all the struggles I have in my head is, how will I be better than my parents? Because that is the biggest struggle. My parents left me at negative. At negative. Ideally, a parent should leave their children probably at a zero. You know, at a zero to start from.
If you're not able to give me a lot, at least leave me at a zero.
At a zero. But most of us, and this I'm speaking to so many other change makers and so many other people who are raised up in the slums, in rural communities. Our parents left us at nothing, negative. And it can even be at negative 50.
So you have to pay all that debt.
Exactly. So I have to pay all my parents' debt and get to zero. And from zero, I have to start building my life. And as I build my life, I have to start also build my children, because I cannot leave my children at negative as my parents left me. And so these are the struggles that people need to look at. You have to choose your struggles. So you either choose to build yourself, or choose to be built by, or you choose to look at what other people are doing. Yes.
Charles, I don't know how you're going to take this question, but it's in line with the parents. What if they did not know anything better from what they did?
And I actually have asked myself that question severally.
And what answers do you come up with?
I've never had an answer. Because most of the time, we blame our parents. They did not give me this, they did not give me that. Or they never left me with anything. Can I shock you today? I even struggle when I hear people calling, their parents, or maybe, we are used to calling, a mom. You can call anyone mom. But it's very difficult to call someone father. Especially if they are not your father. So anytime, and I'm still struggling with that up to date. So anytime someone says my father, and I feel
it sort of takes you down a trench.
Yes. But I look at my elder brothers. Their father, who is my father, never left them with anything. So I say it's even better I never met him, probably. So that I will not blame him. So I don't blame him. I don't blame my parents. I have to build my life, Alan. And that is what I need to do. If they didn't know anything any better, or if they didn't have ways to make us, build an empire for us, that is a choice they made, and not mine. Their responsibility was to just give birth to me. And so from now, it's me to take up my life. Someone joked that when you get to 30, when you're growing up, you say, I was born in a poor background. But when you get to 30, you are the background. And I don't want my children to say I was raised up in a poor background. Because now I'm the background.
You have to bring a different background.
Exactly.
Yes. Interesting question. Interesting perspective there. I want to go back on a point that you've made, and I will also be vulnerable. I have been frustrated for a couple of reasons in the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I picked up writing as well. Yes, you're frustrated. I've made it a norm. When I wake up very early in the morning, I'm quite an early riser. First thing that I do, journal some of the things that you are anticipating to go throughout to happen throughout the day. And when I get back to the house, then I would, before I go to bed, I also get to journal. So this means I have put I have two sort of side bed cabinets. So I have a book on this other side and a book on the other side, so that I do not have any reason to say the book was far away. So if I do not pick the book on this other side, I'll pick the book on this other side. I bring up this because many people might not know how to quell the fears that they are going through, or even take stock of what they're doing in their life. What are some of the benefits? I know you've touched a bit on it, but for us to sort of hammer it into the listener's ears and the listener's mind, how important it is, how integral has this been, writing? How has it been integral in you changing your perspectives in how you look at things and how you deal with problems in your life?
For me, that has been the core in terms of my healing, like I said. And so when you write your thoughts down, when you write your ideas, your fears down, and you read it, for example, and I read it loudly, you are not only healing yourself, but you are also putting yourself to be a healer. Because when it's like, you know, when you read a book loudly, you are speaking to yourself.
Absolutely.
You know? When I read the Bible and even the things that I write, I read them loudly, so that I'm not only reading them, but I want to hear all that. And that is very key, because most of the people, they don't listen to their inner self. Most of the time they don't. But when you write, and you write out the struggles, and you read, and you say, oh, this is what I go through, you are able to start thinking on how to bring solution to it. Because I believe we have solution to everything that we go through. We have. Because there wouldn't be a problem without a solution. And you have to meditate upon that. You have to take time to reflect on that. That is very key. That is very key. You'll find, you know, for example, if you, and I don't know if you have experienced this, that probably you are walking or you get into a matatu and you step on someone. And immediately, instead of just saying, you have stepped on me, they bring things that are even unrelated to their incidents. Yes. That is a sign of people who have not dealt with the fears inside them. So they are looking at every opportunity to pour out that frustration.
Other people.
Yes. And that is very dangerous. Extremely dangerous. You need to identify ways in which you can be able to pour out your frustration. For me, I do it through writing. I do it through, you know, a lot of other things. That might not work for other people. You need to be able, and that's why reflection is very key. That's why personal time is very key. There are a lot of people who they have problems in their life, but they spend a lot of time in crowded places.
Because actually, let me stop you right there, even as I would want you to continue with that thought. There are people who would say, I want to quell the noises in my head by replacing them with other noises, and that is music, going out. And actually, I'm also guilty sometimes. When I have something that has persistently remained on my brain, I'll just plug earphones in and I will blast to loud music, and once I'm done, those thoughts would have sort of quelled. But now you're telling us that we are doing it wrong. Not
that. And when I say in terms of noise is you are not, because if music is working for you, if it's a therapy for you, you need to define that. And you need to find meaning in that. But when I talk about noise is, you know, even the environment that we are in. You know, you are going through this, but you are not in a place that you can listen to that your inner self. You want, there's so much that are coming in you know, in terms of the neighborhood, in terms of the workplace. You want to be involved in other affairs, in other talks and all that, and that does not work most of the time, because at the end of the day, when you get back home, before you sleep, your problems will come back.
Haunting.
Yes.
Knock, knock.
Yes, they will be coming back.
Yeah.
And you'll not, you know, that time, all the people that you're interacting with, they are not there with you. So you die frustrated. You sleep frustrated.
And you wake up frustrated.
You wake up frustrated all the time. I'm married with, you know, and I have twins. They're 2 years old.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much. And our best couple told us, you know, before our marriage, before our wedding, they told us one thing that till today I always revisit all the time, that when you come back home, make sure that 30 minutes, at least, not even 30, a few minutes before you see the children or you get into the house, that you leave every frustration either at the gate or somewhere. And that's what we always do a lot of time, because we don't want to pour our frustrations on our children.
Because it's a clean slate.
Yes. Because a child will come, he will be even probably crying. And you are frustrated, you know, the place of work was like this, or the bills have not been paid and all this.
Yeah.
And you'll just start pouring that.
And lash out at the kid.
Yes.
And they will wonder, why is dad doing this?
Exactly. And then the other lesson that I picked from them is, before you sleep, and it's biblical, it's very biblical, do not go to bed when you are annoyed. And that's why it's coming to the part of, you know, whatever you slept thinking about, you'll wake up with it. So do not go
Can you stop talking to me directly?
So before you go to sleep,
Yeah.
you have to offload everything. You have to. And that is very key in terms of healing. That is for as change makers.
Yeah.
Alan, we go through a lot.
Yeah.
You know, you're carrying frustrations. I do a lot of trainings with teachers, pastors.
Yeah.
And they pour out. And you know, when people pour out, they're coming to your spirit. Now imagine when you go to sleep, you have like 10 people that you train that day.
Yeah.
So if you don't go to bed and you are, you know, you have released everything, you'll even have nightmares. Yes.
Wow. As we're progressing this conversation into the work that now that you do to change the community, just because we were dealt lemonades growing up, do we really have to become change makers? Can't we just let that be? Okay, yes, that was us, but can't we just let that be? Do we really need to bear the brunt of carrying that and say, it is us to do something about this? Can't we just decide to do other things? And I ask you this question from a selfish point of view. I look at the things that I do and I'm like, kwani hakuna wase wengine wanaweza fanya hizi vitu, ni mimi tu lazima nifanye? The answer sometimes or all the time is always hakuna wase, ama ni mimi tu naweza fanya, ama ni mimi nataka kufanya. But must it be that, or is it because we were wired like that?
There are many people who have gone through that environment and have decided not to do anything. There are so many.
They've decided to let the status quo be.
Yes. But the problem is, if you don't deal with what ate you, your children have to deal with it. And your children doesn't, I don't mean exactly your biological children.
Yeah.
if you don't deal with the things that are affecting the society, the community you grew up in,
Yeah.
you're actually transferring that
You
to the next generation.
You're just pushing that bill to the next generation.
Yes. You are pushing that. And that becomes a problem. Two, those who are coming after us, they'll question us.
Why weren't you able to do something about this?
Exactly.
I like the Gen Zs are asking the millennials right now.
They'll ask, so this happened, why didn't you do that? So we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility. Each one of us have a responsibility. And you don't have to do everything. You have to choose your niche and capitalize on it and leave the rest to do the rest. You have to decide that this is what I want to do. And that's what I decided. I can't be everywhere. So I know what I want to do. I decided I want to support children in my work. And this is how I'm going to support them. So, and you'll not find me in other spaces because I know what I want to do. But it's not mandatory. It's a choice. As change makers, this is a calling. Just as teachers, teaching is a calling, pastoral is a calling. As change makers, it's a calling. Because the people that you support in the communities, they might not even relate to the things you go through. Because they need solutions. And you have to be able to provide those solutions to them. You have to be able to provide avenues that your community thrives. And so I'll say, if you have a calling, you have to go for it. There is one lady that we support through our work, and she's based in Limuru, and she runs a center. It's called Utugi Community, Utugi Angels Community. She was working, she was being paid good money. She was working somewhere else. But inside her, she felt like that was not enough. That God is calling her to do something. In her center, she's supporting persons with disability. You know, the vulnerable community. And you go to that community, you go to the Utugi Angels community, and you see the work that she's doing. Probably will not be able to do that. But she identified that. You understand? She identified that. And so we all have a calling. The moment we were created, God had a purpose for us. It's illegal to die without knowing what your purpose on earth was. It's illegal.
But the question is, shall we be prosecuted once we get to the Lord?
I don't know what will happen. I don't know what will happen after the afterlife.
Yeah.
But for me, that is my mantra. It's illegal for someone to die without knowing what their purpose is. You at 70, you don't know why. And because even the work, and I'm not talking about, purpose is not, it's very different. It's not your career, it's not this. It's that thing that God, because we are all predestined. That is we are all predestined to be something. But we need to be able to align the purpose why God created us with our personal visions. And sometimes those do not even work.
How do we find this purpose, Charles? Because I think we stay in mazes and circles, removing circles. You try this, it does not work. You try this, it does not work. And also the problem of peer pressure. Because you saw your friend start an organization, you're like, this is just like 1, 2, 3. I could also start my own organization. What really goes into identifying one's purpose?
It goes back to everything we have been talking about. And one is self-awareness. Who are you? Who is Salim Charles?
Yeah.
You have to know who you are. So if everything is removed, who am I? And this is what we teach and train, in all our sessions when we work with teachers, our community leaders and pastors. Who are you? That is the starting point in defining your purpose. Then you must be able to find the right system. So many people don't have even a support system. You must be able to find the right system. People that can help shape your purpose and your journey. And this might be, if you are a Christian, is it through the church that you go? Is it your pastor? If you are a Muslim, is it through, the different spaces that you're in? If you are Hindu, if you are this, that must be done. You must know your strength. You must know your weaknesses. You must have values. People don't have values. The other day I was having a session with my teachers in our program, and someone asked me, what is the difference between personality and value? And people struggle with that because you confuse your personality and your value. And value is the belief. Do you have a belief system? Are there things that you believe in that are pushing you? Are there things, traditions that you hold? Those are values. When you say, when you wake up, these are the things that you do. Those are not personalities. Personality changes depending on the environment that you are in. But your value will never change. And your value will help you define and strengthen your purpose in life. And those are the key things that we need as change makers. Even as you do the things that you do, are they part of your purpose? And you said something about, someone started an organization, so I want to start it.
Yeah.
We have started several. I have started a number of organizations. And the time reaches, I reach at a point where the wrangles start within the organization. I leave it. I say, I think I was not destined to this. I leave it. I move to the next phase in my life. Because when you dwell on that, you are not only killing yourself, but you're also destroying that which was deposited in you. And you might not achieve your purpose. And so you don't have to start an organization.
Yeah.
You can work as an individual and do the things that you are doing. If working through an organization works,
well and good.
Well and good. Yep.
What is the status of peace building in the areas that you work in?
So every time I introduce myself as a peace builder, especially to people who are not, and because I'm Kenyan, who are not familiar with peace building, they'll say, but Kenya is peaceful. We don't have post-election. Hatuna maandamano. Saizi maandamano imeisha, hakuna.
We even saw a handshake between the president and opposition leader. Yeah.
But surprisingly, Kenya's never been peaceful. That's why one small incident awakens all these historical injustices in the country. We are a country of so many nations. We have never built a Kenyan state. And so...
Are you questioning the sovereignty of our country?
No, I'm not. When we talk about nations, we are talking about the different tribes. We have the Luo nations, we have the Luya nation, the Kikuyu nation. So all these nations came together to make Kenya. But we need to have one thing that unites us as a country. We don't have that. And that's why every time there is a very small thing, it takes us back to our nations, our tribes.
Yeah.
And this is what is happening in the communities. So the communities we work in, let's take a scenario of the urban communities, the urban settlements.
Yeah.
It's made up of different communities. And so any small thing that happens, it disintegrates the whole community. And there is a lot of struggles within these communities. there is a lot of, gender-based violence within these communities. There is a lot of domestic violence, a lot of frustrations, poverty, lack of education, lack of, this community don't have access to basic needs. And so what they lack all the time is, internal peace. Most of people in this community, they don't have internal peace.
Yeah.
The inner peace. Because in peace building, we talk about inner peace and the outer peace. They don't have inner peace. Inner peace is individual. And that's what we have been talking about. How do you find your inner peace? So they don't have that. And that's why you see there is a lot of suicide in this community. There is a lot of people killing, one another.
Yeah.
And all this. And these are the things that they are struggling with. And you find children going through these kind of situations. They don't know any other life. We run a program called Teens for Peace. This is, we train teenage footballers. The first session that we held in Dandora, one kid talked about, there is this one footballer that lives with the mother alone. So the mother, in order to cater for the, her children's bills and school fees and stuff, she sells changa in their own house. So people come to the house to have what? Changa. Now, you know what happens when people get drunk?
Violence.
So they get violent. And sometimes they will not even pay
for the brew. Yeah.
Now, this kid or this boy started narrating the story. And he said, I've seen my mother, these people refusing to pay my mother and start beating my mother in front of us. And this has happened a lot. This has happened a lot. And this is just one case study of a child or a family that is going through that kind of a process. And that's the situation within these communities. There is a lot of insecurity. There is a lot of instability in families. So you can imagine this boy, if he doesn't have the right people to guide him,
what happens? He might turn up as the people who are beating up the parents.
Yes. And even when he goes to his football team and other spaces, if he's corrected wrongly, there is being corrected in the right way and being corrected wrongly. That frustration will show up. And they even shared that even our coaches don't understand us. So that is the kind of environment, that is the kind of status that we have in these kind of communities. When you go to the rural communities and other places, there is the issue of historical injustice. You have heard about that so many times. There is the issue of a lot of conflict, resource conflict, people who are fighting because of inheritance in the communities. And so every time you are always in conflict with people and all that. So there is a lot that needs to be done.
There is something that you've said about the coach, and I have come across people who have opined that if you're not from a community like ours, then we're not going to listen to you, or we are not going to connect on a personal level with you. And I'm going to ask you if this is a situation that you've also found in your training. And I have seen this as well in the communities that I work in, from a personal level and from a change makers level, where when we go into a training, say we are training people with disabilities, the trainees will accept and receive the information a little bit faster when it's a person with a disability who is training rather than a person without a disability. has this happened to you, and why do you think that is the case? Because there are so many change makers who might be doing work in the communities, but the community is not feeling the effect of that work that they are doing. Not because that the work they are doing is wrong, but because they are delivering this work in the wrong manner.
Yeah. That's a very good question. And throughout my work at a personal level and organization, and even collectively in the people I work with, we have, experienced that a lot. And that made us change the way we deliver our trainings. And that comes from socialization.
Yeah.
There is a way we have been socialized as human beings in the communities that we have come from.
Yeah.
We feel safe with people we can identify with. And so if I cannot identify with you, I will not be safe with you.
Yeah.
And that is, I don't see any problem with that. So it is now the responsibility of the change maker to find ways to make people feel safe in their spaces. And how do we do this? When we start our training, or everywhere that we go, we don't identify with our professions or our tribes. Remember, we were first human beings before anything else. We were all born the same. Before we were actually made, before we were told who we are. When a child is born, they don't know if they are poor or rich.
They are only identified by that first cry that they make.
Yes. Nothing else. But as you start growing up, then you realize, oh, I live in Korogosho. Then you start seeing sewage, you start seeing this, you start seeing the, the houses, the people. Then you start hearing words like, we are poor. We are this. The same thing happens if you're born in Kileleshwa. You start seeing the environment and all this. Now, if you are born, for example, with, with a special case, then people start telling you, you are like this. You didn't know. You didn't know completely. And so how we start doing this, how we started doing this is we start identifying as human beings. Rather than, when you get into a training and start saying, Salim Charles, I hold this, and this, and this, people start withdrawing.
Honestly, you're training people in, I think I might be guilty to some extent when I think about it, because and I'm not saying that people in Mathare might not be degree holders, but if you are training people who they are predisposed to the idea that they might never get a degree, so who the hell are you to talk to us if you have a degree?
Yes. And then also the life that we have gone through has taught us one thing: defense mechanism. You have to develop defense mechanism. So if I hear something that is not within my system, I'll block
and delete.
Yes, block, delete. So everything else you'll be talking about, it will
just
not
passing over my head. I'm actually seated there to wait for the reimbursement, because
Only.
if I go without that reimbursement, I might sleep on an empty stomach.
Exactly. But as change makers, people who are involved in community work, you must be able to identify with these people. Two, you must also understand what they are going through. Most of the time we go and start talking about foreign things, you don't know what these people are going through. You don't know. So you'll give examples. Unapa an example ya America.
Manza mimi niko coach.
Yes. Or you start saying, for example, I slept hungry because we only ate pizza last night. This person doesn't know what that is.
So there is the need of change makers also introspecting and understanding the communities that they are working in, and then they model themselves close to the communities that they are working with.
Yes. And I'm not saying that when you identify with these communities, when you understand who they are, like you lose your identity.
Yeah.
No. You still maintain who you are. And you have to be authentic, because that is very key. But even the example you bring in the room when you're having those trainings, when you're having those sessions, they have to be examples that they relate with the community. And you have to be able to, and it's not about you. That is very key. The work that we do is not about us.
Yeah.
If it's about us, then you can go and look for a job where you are employed and you get, paid and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you decide to do community work, if you decide that this is what I'm going to do for the society, it's not about you. It's about the community. That is very key. Because most people have not been able to, deal with that. So the work that you are doing is not about you. It's about the community. It's about their needs.
Yeah.
Don't bring your needs. Don't bring your examples. Because sometimes that might not work.
And it might repel off people.
Yes. So let them feel the ownership of the process. Let them feel that this is a safe space for us. Create that. And it's very important. Let people know that they are not judged by where they come from. Sometimes even the examples that we give when you're having this kind of sessions
might come off judgmental.
Yes. And even you don't want to be judged.
True. Absolutely.
You understand? So don't judge people. So if you are a change maker, do your work, but also be careful that your work doesn't come out as if, doesn't come out as an insult to the people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a follow-up to that, yeah. As a change maker, as you're doing your work and you are impacting the community, there is also something that is happening to you. You are growing.
Yes.
And in this growing, you might outgrow, or you will surely outgrow the community that you are working in and that you are working for. When it comes at that point, what happens? Do you drop the change making and say, now I am a totally different person? And I ask also from a point of something that I've realized in the work that we are doing. The trainings that I would deliver, and I would totally see that the room is totally off. Not because people are not identifying with me, or not because I do not look like the people in the room, but because the room feels I am a little bit ahead of them, so they are not relating with me. So does that mean that now I drop the work that I have built all this while, or I stop caring for the people that I have been working with or for in the community? What would you advise a change maker to do in that particular situation? Because definitely you will grow.
Yes.
You're not going to remain the same person.
Yes.
If you only knew 3 words in English, English has big vocabularies, now you have 10 and you can't stop using them. And your participants are like, what is he saying? We cannot relate. Yeah. Does that mean I stop doing the work that I'm doing?
No. That shouldn't make you stop the work that you are doing. And 3 things that I always carry along in this journey of the work that I'm doing is learning. Every day I learn a lot, and as a change maker you need to keep on learning. 2, you need to unlearn, and that is very key. There are things that you probably I used to do last year that were working. Today those things might not work today. So I have to unlearn. Then I have to relearn a lot of things. And so the communities that we work in, we need to be able to do this. And then 2, you need, as a change maker, to build other people. So many people don't have that. It's you and you alone. So when you are not there, the work that you started dies.
Yeah, somebody who were in a training calls them kiosks because it only needs one person to attend to it.
Yes. Yes. And that is a problem.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. Because it means it was all about you.
It isn't about the community.
It isn't about the community. If you see, just look, if you research, just research of successful change makers, there are people they have built over years and they are taking over. So you must be able to build other mini Alans that are coming up. That when people see this person, they see Alan. They say, oh, even with before they even say I work with Alan, they, oh,
you have this person's traits.
Yeah, do you work with Alan? And they're like, when you remember, and let me use this example in the Bible.
Yeah.
When Jesus was taken by, by the, when Jesus, you remember when Peter denied Jesus that night. And what happened? And Jesus was taken away. You remember the story. And these people came, and Peter was, he was, alikuwa amekaa kwa moto, ako peke yake. And people looked at him and said, you look like Jesus. You are one of them. Yeah. And he said, no, I'm not. That point, Jesus looked back and said, Peter,
I knew.
I knew. But how did people identify Peter with Jesus? Because he looked like Jesus. And so we have been doing this work and we don't have people that look up to us. We have not built anyone. I am a product of people who have held my hand. That's why I talk about mentors all the time. Yeah. You know, because
there are those who we are self-made, Charles. Nobody built us. Circumstances built us.
You cannot say you are self-made.
There are people who proclaim they're self-made millionaires, they're self-made change makers.
No. If circumstances, which sit down with them for them to define the circumstances that build them.
Yeah.
Yes. There is nobody who is self-made. Nobody. There is nobody who is self-made. I don't believe in that. We are a product of the people we have picked in our journey of life. People we have walked, people we have interacted with. Places that we have gone to. So you cannot say you are self-made. If you are self-made, then ungezaliwa, uamuke, alafu utoke tu kwa hiyo nyumba kama uko.
Kama wale watoto walizaliwa wakati wa COVID-19. Those babies have some weird.
Yeah, because we pick all the things that we have. We pick from every environment that we go through. Yeah. From home to church to school to that. So how will you say you are self-made? Yet you have gone through school.
You are impacted knowledge.
So who impacted you? You didn't impact knowledge on yourself. That teacher contributed to who you are. Yeah. By the fact that your parent raised you in a certain environment, it means they are part of who you are. Yeah. By the fact that you have other people that you walk around with, business partners or what, they are part of who you are. Yeah. So how will you be self-made? It's impossible.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Tell us about the work that you are doing with the children, and why particularly children, because many people you would find they will focus with the youth, the elderly. Why do you have particular interest in children?
There is a saying, I'm not sure if it's correct, that says samaki mkunja angali mdogo. And the reason why we focus on children through our programs is very simple. We want to change the narrative. We want to change where we are coming from. Children are the foundation of our society. Through our work, and you'll agree with me, every time there are situations within the communities, or there is violence within the communities, or there is an intervention that we are developing within the communities, who are the people that we bring on board? Youth and women. Children are rarely incorporated in the programs. And so when we were designing our program, our organization and the work that we are doing, because we don't even call the work we are doing, we don't call our organization, we call it intervention. So we started thinking about how do we change the story. So growing up in Mathare North and growing up in the slums, we have so many other people who have grown up in these slums or even worse places. But what do we change? What do we do? And so we thought of, first of all, the name. What kind of name should we give to this intervention? And we were thinking a lot. And then an inspiration came. And that was reimagining new communities. That we want to reimagine a new community where children are the center of change in the community. Children are the center of development in the community. Children are the center of the voice in the community. And we want to have a community where we are creating a safe and a conducive environment for children and even for the future generation. And so we work with children because we believe children have a say in the problems we are going through. And we want to change. Our theory of change is very clear. That we want to change the position of children being vulnerable to violence into change makers. That they look at themselves as change makers and not always as vulnerable to the situations and to the challenges that they face in the communities.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is some brilliant work. And my follow-up question to that would be, how does a peaceful and successful or a cohesive community look like? Because this is what you're working towards.
Yes.
Yeah.
A cohesive and peaceful community looks like this. It's a community that thrives in its differences. As simple as that.
A community that thrives in its differences.
Yes. That we look at the different tribes, the different ideologies, and we come together to build on that and say, this is what we want to do. A community that is very keen on collaboration. That doesn't look at, backgrounds and say, oh, you come from a different background, I come from a different background. No. And that, for me, is a cohesive and a peaceful community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we are winding up this amazing conversation, because these conversations can go on and on and on, but as we are winding up this conversation, I would like to take a few steps back into our conversation about the change maker themselves. And there is something that you've profoundly said, that the work that we do is not about us, but about the community. And wittingly also reminding you a conversation of a training that we've been going through. Actually, that's where we met. The facilitator always said that, yes, you are working for the community, but you also need to take care of yourself.
Yes.
So my question is, also coming from that perspective that was shared by the facilitator, who really should take care of the change maker?
That's a very interesting question.
Yeah. Who should take care of us? Because you are impacting many people. Yeah. And they are pouring their challenges, their situations, their circumstances into us. And we are like sponges. We are absorbing all of this. When we retreat, for instance, when you retreat back home to your wife and to your twins, who really takes care of you? Because you would also not want to offload this to your kids and to your wife. Actually, you said before you go into the house, make sure you leave these things somewhere. Yeah. So that you do not also go with them into your house. Yeah. So who really is supposed to take care of the change maker?
Very good question. And I think that's what we have been struggling with most of the time. Yeah. And that's why you see we have frustrations. We have, you're carrying all this burden, community burden, and then you go home, you also have your personal issues, and that cannot work. you know, your mother or your parents, your family tells you, hii kitu hata iletangi kusaidi. Haikusaidi, it's problems. Can you look for a better job?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you be something? Because they are seeing frustrations.
Yeah.
And that is because we have not built a support system. As change makers, most of the time, we don't support each other.
But we are competing. We are looking at the same things. We are looking at the same resources. We are looking at the same beneficiaries. How will we dare work together?
Do you know there is enough resources for each one of us?
That's what they say.
And that's why he talked about look for your niche. Once you identify your niche, then you can thrive in it. Then look for the right people. Most of the time we think that, oh, the support system should actually advise me. No. So I have people within my network that once I do my trainings or I go through, I'm from the community, I just call them. Like just one person. And I'll spend 2 hours talking to this person. I don't need them to answer me. I need to pour out what you're saying. If this person is your wife, if is your, because the other thing, this person must be a person who is not judging you. Must be a person that you trust. Because most of the time, what has destroyed or killed change makers is you'll share a very personal experience with someone, and in a forum, that person will start talking about it.
Yeah, you will hear it in tabloids.
Exactly. So we need a support system. We need to be able, because we need to pour out our traumas.
Yeah.
We need to be able to share frustrations. We need, like, for example, just say, call you and say, Alan, I don't need you to advise me, but I just want you to listen. This is what I've gone through. Then once I'm done, I hang up. I don't need you even to answer. That is healing. That is the therapy. But we don't go through that. We don't. We don't. Most of change makers don't experience that. They don't practice that. And then two, we also, like I've said a million times, we need to meditate. We need to have time for self-reflection. And you need to know when you are, you are taking in and the things that you are taking in and the things that you are not taking in.
Yeah.
Not everything that we pick in this work, you have to take it in your heart. No.
Some of the things you just have to leave them at face value.
Yes. At that. And then you need to know the things that you can deal with. When you do the work that you are doing, don't promise anything to the community. I've seen change makers, and I'm a victim as I started this work. You are doing mentorship for kids. A parent comes and say, ata ana school fees, and say, acha tutaona vile tutafanya. That is a promise.
Wacha tuone vile tutafanya.
It's a promise.
So anangoja ufanye.
Yes.
Mwambie tu sina.
Yes. Mwambie, our program is specifically for this. At the moment, we don't know anybody who can support this part of your need. As simple as that.
Wouldn't that make you feel look like a failure? Because they're like, if you're not able to meet my needs, then mbona nije sasa?
But you see, no. Because when you start the program, it's very important to also outline your areas of intervention and what you cannot do.
Make them understand.
Make them understand.
This I can do, here I am limited.
Yes. And this is not just in terms of training. It's in terms of the community you work in.
Yeah.
Make them understand. And even the people that you're working with, make them understand that this is what we are doing. This is what we can do. And also within the community, which group are you working with? Because we take a lot of trash in us. We take a lot of that. And that is what is destroying us.
Yeah.
And then even when we start this work, and I'm glad you brought the issue of the training that we'll be going through. This is what you started doing.
Yeah.
But because you get into the community and you see another need, you pick it up.
You jump on it.
Then at the end of the year, when you're evaluating the work that you are doing, you find that you have done like a million things.
But zero impact.
And zero impact. You cannot even report. You cannot even talk about the work that you are doing. Because, you provided school fees, you did this, you are in peace building, you're in the reproductive health, you're in this, you're in so many things. You're in table banking. There is nothing. You cannot point to one particular impact that you had. And that's the beginning of trouble. I'm a peace builder. I don't do anything else.
You only build peace.
Only that. When you talk about, so that's what we do, connected to peace building and communication. And even our communication work, like I explained, it's connected to peace building. Yes.
Interesting. Charles, you've been, as you speak, you use a lot of experience, because it seems you've been doing this for the longest time. As we are winding up, what has this work made you become that you are proud of? And you would say, I am not going to die with nothing just because my parents left me nothing.
So I look back when I started this work. I didn't know anybody. And today, I have people who will say that they are who they are because of me. And to me, that is the biggest achievement. That I have organizations that will say, we were struggling with this, but when Charles came in, this is where we are. My prayer has always been to be able to not become very rich, but of course everybody wants to be wealthy, but be able to have enough for myself. And I feel within my spirit that I'm on the right lane to achieving that. I can assure you, by the time I'm dying at old age, I'll be proud of myself. Because whatever we are building, it's a revolution. And we are building it one time, one step at a time. One step at a time. I have people I look back at and they look at me and they say, honestly, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. But you made me become who I am. Some are even successful than me. But they say, you supported me in this. Children who we are supporting in our programs. Teachers, pastors, in communities. We look back. Through our program, we have supported so many kids and so many pastors and teachers. But there are those that I feel, people that it's like they are mirroring you. And they make me feel like I have accomplished what God brought me to this world to do.
Charles, thank you for making time, for coming for this conversation. And here, what we would say is to wish you all the best. And may your weirdest dreams and wishes come a reality. And may all your fears that you have do not become a reality. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity, to be able to discuss this and to discuss about my journey as a change maker. I really appreciate. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.